Good evening, everybody, and welcome to yet another chat session organized by the Madras Canine Club, presented by me, Siddharth. Today, we have with us my very good friend from Chennai. He is a native of Chennai, but right now lives in a different part of the world, literally. He is Rajnikant, a cocker breeder and an exhibitor for the past 20 years. Comes from a dog loving family. Yeah, I know this. The entire family is one dog loving family. And he's been in the Madras Canine Club for the past 2 decades as well. He's been part of our club, right, for a very long time. Past secretary of the Madras Canine Club as well. Before, after he left on work duties to a different place altogether, I had to take up. But he was the secretary of the Madras Canine Club. My guidance in a lot of ways as well. Life member of the Kennel Club of India, works in the printing and labeling industry primarily. That's the basic bread and butter. Shows, breeds, talkers, and now boxers in the prefix Rubrica Kennels. Rajani, thank you so much for joining. From day one, I think you have been associated with us in a lot of ways, I suppose. My early remembrance of you was not talkers but Dalmatians, if I get it right.
Yeah, you are right, Siddhu.
Super. Rajani, okay, let's thank you so much for, as I said, thank you so much for joining in our chat session and talking about talkers. I mean, you have been associated with this breed for a very long time. As I said, even though I saw you initially with Dalmatians, somewhere down the line, I think cocker has always been your passion. I would say your passion breed and your go-to breed for anything, I suppose. So I have not seen you diversify from that particular breed at all till date. Good that the past 20 years you have been actually stuck to one breed and trying to develop that breed in India. It's actually something that is really necessary as such. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Siddhu. I first like to thank you, our Madras Canine Club. As you rightly said, Madras Canine Club is more like is a family. It's a family for me. I have been part and parcel, as you said, and I really thank our president, our entire committee, yourself, and all the people who are behind this live show. Thank you so much for providing me this opportunity, Siddhu.
Super. Okay, let's get started into our questions. Okay, there are a lot of people who are tuned in who are novice as well as breeders who've been in the game for a very long time. But just to get some regular questions out of the way as such. Your first question is this: how did you get associated with purebred dogs and English Cocker Spaniel in particular?
Okay, super. As you started and you had introduced me, it all goes back to that. As you rightly said, we have been always a dog-loving family. We've been always keen. Dogs have somehow been the more, I would say, instead of dog-loving family, we love pets that way. Let me put it like this. We have been always into passionate about pets and other things. And of all the pets we have always had, dogs used to be my primary interest. So luckily, we kept on nurturing that interest, and as you rightly said, we used to be having dachshunds. Our very first pure breed dog is a Chippy Parai. When I was close to 2.5 years kid or 3 years kid, that's when my dad got us the first pure breed dog. It was a genuine pure breed Chippy Parai. It goes way back 40 years before. From then, the next pure breed dogs that we had were dachshunds, because my family was quite fond of that. We were very fond of it. Then, as you rightly said, I got into Dalmatians. This was all close to my college time, and I was almost, it is a shady area when I just from college to my work. That is the time, and as you rightly said, that's the time when I met us all. As you said, our friendship dates close to 22 years now. I came to Madras Canine Club. I met Mr. Sudarshan sir. That's how it all happened. Actually, Mrs. Romla Thomas, who was very instrumental in bringing me, Cockers got in touch with Romla Thomas, and she got me into the club. And as you said, that's how it all started, and I met. And yes, Dalmatians were my breeds that time. At that time. But then, yes, Cockers came into pictures, and yes, no doubt, then we've not moved from Cockers for all these years. I again have to credit Sudarshan sir for that. I remember I was working on Cockers. I started having Cockers. I was part of the club. We were all doing. And one day, as usual, we used to meeting regularly at the house. No, as you said, we always come for the club work, and we always been at your the clubhouse, which is also your place. And once he said, it's not big to get into any breed or something. He gave me a target. After 5 years, whoever talks about English Cocker Spaniels in India, then your name should be also. No, it should be associated. You should get associated like that. Yeah. So that inspired. Those are the kinds of words. Again, 22 years before, I have to say, really took it up. And yes, today I think wherever or whatever we have little bit achieved about this breed, I still think it's a long way. It's a long way. But whatever we've been able to do in the last 2 decades, we've been doing this and that. That's how I got associated in pure breeds and Cocker Spaniel as such.
Nice. So Romla Thomas auntie was your guidance when you started.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, my first English Cocker is a orange and white roan from Ushan's kennels. But it was more of an accident that I got into Cocker Spaniel. And to be very frank, till I first saw the dog, I wouldn't say that I was much even thinking about English Cocker Spaniel as a breed on my pure breed dogs and my efforts there. But we accidentally met this wonderful bitch, and first love is what you say, right? And immediately he's my first love, and it all started. And that's how I got to know Romla Thomas auntie, because she was very impressed. We took her into our fold, and she was very happy to know that an youngster like me who's keen on pure breed dogs took up Cocker Spaniels. And then she also wanted to motivate me, and she really wanted to grow me there, and she really helped me. And that's how she got me associated to the club. And I think then it's no see. I think yes, for the last 2.5, 3 years, yes, I have to tell you that I have ditched you all guys. Quit.
No, that's right. It's okay.
That's the way it is.
Done. Super. Yeah. Thanks. Okay, let's move on to the next question. There is one myth, like in the sense, like where is the dog actually, the origin of the dog? It's not England. Is it Spain or England?
Okay. Spaniels. Spaniels is a widespread of breed of hunting dogs, widely used throughout the English Isles. England itself is like an island, right? So throughout England, Ireland, and entire Europe. Okay. So there is one theory that the word spaniel, any spaniel goes to Spain and the surrounding regions. But as well as, to be very specific, when you talk about English Cocker Spaniels, as I said, Spaniels were there all through. But English Cocker Spaniels, Cocker, again is a word associated to woodcock, woodcock birds, which were primarily, so the English Cocker Spaniels were developed more in England. The development of the breed or the refinement of this set of Spaniels happened in England. But yes, the origins I would say it's entire Europe and England. You can't pinpoint saying it's England.
So one particular place.
Yes. But because Spaniels were spread through, if you go back the history, Spaniel breeds of dogs were found widely spread through thing. Earlier days, they were doing multitasking. But as you said, the people based on their needs, hunting requirements made developments further and further, and specific breeds were developed for specific hunting requirements. So the development part, I would say, more happened in England. Today, the current generation of Cocker Spaniels that we are seeing, that development surely happened in England, and that's why it's called English Cocker Spaniel, to be very specific. And there was also reasons when originally it was Cocker Spaniels, but unfortunately the English Cockers were taken to America, and in America there was a separate breed which is called American Cocker Spaniel that was developed. Then compulsorily there had to be this distinction. Then it became a necessity. Instead of Cocker Spaniels, you had to start calling them English Cocker Spaniels and American Cocker Spaniels. So that's how it is.
Perfect. So you said about the why the dog are actually bred. So hunting. So was it bred? Was a dog bred for hunt? And are they related to? They have a. I mean, I read somewhere in the histories that says that if they have some kind of relation to the Springer Spaniels as well. And where does actually the word? I mean, the sense the English Cocker Spaniel name come from?
Okay, I think a little bit of the answer for this question was already dealt with. The question goes like this: were they bred to hunt? Yeah, they were bred to hunt. When we say hunt, hunt itself, as a dog breeder yourself, also being actively involved in dogs, hunting also is defined into many different things, like just tracking, literal hunting, like course hunting, where the dog literally pursues its prey. Similarly, was assisting the hunter. Now, spaniels, again going back to all kind of spaniels. Primarily, spaniels are dogs that assist an hunter. They may not actually be hunting it, but they will assist the hunter in locating the prey animal or whichever whatever thing. Then they will help in retrieving the gun down animal, because when people are working in jungle terrains, different terrains, you need the effective hunting dog that retrieves the quarry after the hunt is literally done. No, you need to get it retrieved from the undergrowths and the bush where these things would finally land up in. So cockers or spaniels for that reason, including the English Springer Spaniels, all these primary role is to first flush out, to identify the prey animal, then to flush them out, because they are all hidden in the bushes and other things. So you need an effective dog that will flush them out from these covers for the hunter to then shoot. So that's the primary function. So yes, I would say the English Springer Spaniel and Cocker Spaniels, they may not be closely related. As I said, they all come from a broader Spaniel breed of dogs, but they have been refined. A Springer Spaniel is more, I would say, of all the Spaniels, it's the larger Spaniel, and it works more like your setter dogs. How we have our setter breeds. An English Springer Spaniel would work more like a setter, covering larger areas and exclusively pinning down on the quarry. Whereas a cocker works a little different. It works on the undergrowth. It literally goes through the undergrowth, finds the things and flush them out. So when the birds of prey, when they flush out and they come out of the bushes, the hunter is then able to shoot them. As I said, wherever the shot bird will fall down or whatever it is, the animal is then able to track it. Again, they need to track them and retrieve them back to the hunter. So that would be. And going back to the English Cocker Spaniel, I think the word English had to be added before a Cocker Spaniel, because
after the American came in picture.
There was in the beginning of this century when the breed was redeveloped in America as American Cocker Spaniel from the basic Cocker Spaniel breed. So then you had to add an English Cocker, English onto it for the original breed.
Okay. So we'll take up a question, since we're talking about the hunting part of it. We'll take up a question from one Mr. Radhakrishnan Swaminathan. Cockers are bred for a purpose as compared to other breeds. This breed. Okay, this breed
makes a clear
difference
between show cockers and working cockers. Field trial. Show cockers only confirm only cosmetic. Okay, it's a good question. This question is always regularly. It's a regular question, not only for an English Cocker Spaniel. This question is being asked for every single breed, mainly in this generation. Whether the breed, the specimens that are shown in the shoring, they may be conforming to the standards as per written down standards, but are they capable of doing their working abilities? No doubt, even in English Cockers, I would proudly say the European community has been very, very specific about it. Entirely throughout Europe, even today, cockers are the cockers that are shown in the shorings do compete in the field trials. They take in a lot of these exercises and they come out in flying colors. Personally, my experiences in the last few years, we have seen and associated with some breeders. We keep talking, we understand. And I see in Europe, most of the dogs that are shown in the show ring do work on the field and have been successful in the ring also. But to Mr. Radhakrishnan Swaminathan's question, yes, just like in certain working breeds and many other breeds also, you have a show type, you have a working type breed specific.
Yeah, differences.
And also, so even English Cocker Spaniel, we do have a working type thing where they do tend to look a little smaller. They do not have that much of coat cover. A few of the exaggerations, maybe I could say like that, or a few of the aspects that are looked upon on the show rings may be lacking in this type of cockers, which are exclusively used only in the field trials and working. You may see such breed types in the agility rings. I have seen a lot of such working spaniels used in the agility rings for agility competitions and other things. So I hope I have answered this.
Yeah, you have. I mean, so this is predominantly only in the European states that you see all these field trials and happening. Nothing there.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think there's anything happening in India or in the Asian countries, for that matter of fact.
No. Yeah, for that matter of fact, throughout Asian countries, that way, as you said, even in India, or for that reason, even in Australia, where I generally, even in Australia, we have very good cockers, and most of the cockers in Australia also, I fairly feel, though they are bred and shown in the show ring, they are quite capable of doing the field work also. But just that, as you said, certain places, the climatic conditions and the other related factors of those countries, where they don't do these exercises. But predominantly in Europe, in England, in Ireland, Scotland, and all, they still continue doing these sports. And there is, I wouldn't, again, as I said, I very firmly say that though there are two types, most of the show dogs there do compete in these things, and they are capable of doing what they are till bred for.
Perfect. So you are talking actually about the English and the American. What are the actual differences of both? Since, I mean, as I said, the dog actually went from England to America, and they somehow kind of wanted to breed a different, bring out a different dog altogether, like what Americans do most of the time. So what are the major differences that you find in the breeds?
See, actually, the best thing would be it's a quite an elaborate subject to discuss, but maybe I do not know how much time we would have it. But in nutshell, what I can tell is, as you said, the best would be to go through the breed standards to understand it. But an English Cocker Spaniel, as you said, a Cocker Spaniel was more. When you see a Cocker Spaniel or Cocker Spaniel, you will easily be able to associate it with Spaniel breeds. The features are pretty much retained and there. But yes, as you said, the English Cockers were taken to America, and then they were bred to become their own, another separate breed. Yeah, basically the functionality remained. Actually, even when the breed was developed in America, the functionality was kept in the mind. It was again bred for the same purpose of flushing, quarry games, of huntings, and other things to work in the undergrowth and things. But somewhere, as every breed has gone through transformation, the head portion, the major difference would come in the head. If you see an English Cocker, it's a normal doggy head. Your muscle, your head proportions are all very normal to a Spaniel breed. Whereas on an American Cocker Spaniel, it's completely different. You have a highly rounded head and a very short muscle face. That is a primary telltale. The immediate difference would be there. And the breed itself is much smaller built compared to the original Cocker Spaniel or the English Cocker Spaniel, and was also bred, as I said, because the showing part got involved so much. People got into the show aspect of any breed. Profuse coat. The American Cocker Spaniel was bred continuously over generations for profuse coat, and the kind of coat today an American Cocker Spaniel would have on them, fabulous. It's very nice. It looks really good and beautiful on a show ring when the thing. So these would be the major differences, and also the body construction. They are very compact, and they are more. Their top line is not like an English Cocker. It's more tabletop or a flat top line when you look into American Cocker. and also their movement. An American Cocker's movement is actually that's one area. An English Cocker to an American Cocker, the movement also is a slightly different. It's quite, I would say, quite different, because English Cocker moves in a very moderate way, whereas an American Cocker is quite fleet-footed. No, it moves much exorbitantly fast feeted. So that would be another major difference between an American and an English Cocker.
Okay, so we have a question from one of our viewers about the head part of it. You can read it yourself.
Yes, I'm able to read that.
To the head of
That's a
an
very
American
good
Cocker.
question. To be very frank, actually, the term that has been referred here is completely for breeds that are like the boxers, other stuff-based dogs, is where this nomenclature is
Terminology, yeah.
generally referred to. But being in Cocker Spaniel, to be very frank, my knowledge on American Cocker Spaniel would be limited. But we generally don't associate the American Cocker head to a Brachycephalic head that has been referred to here, because actually speaking, the brachycephalic head means it's a head with a complete, the muscle has got a proper upturn and other things. Whereas on an American Cocker Spaniel, we do not really look on an upturn and other things. Though the muscle is shortened, there is no upturn or some no curvature of the muscle is not there. It doesn't has that kind of structure. So I don't think we can turn them to those categories like the Kerfuch dogs.
Perfect. We have another question. Coincidentally, our next question and one of our viewers' questions is the same. So I'll rather put up the viewer's question. It's about temperament. I mean, what characteristics defines a good English Cocker Spaniel? And our question was basically about the temperament of the dog as well. So these actually go hand in hand. The questions basically. Can you brief the temperament and the personality of the English Cocker Spaniel?
Okay. What characteristics define? And you are talking about temperament.
Yeah.
Okay. See, English Cockers are always called merry Cockers. No, the word merry is very much associated with Cocker Spaniels. Thank you, Yagu. First of all, I have to thank Yagu to post the question. Yagu is a friend of us. Thank you. What did I say? Okay. Characteristics. What characteristics define a good English Cocker Spaniel? Okay. So I think his question is a little elaborate, whereas as you said, temperament, we are always talking about a very, very happy, merry Cocker. That's what the word merry defines. The Cocker is such a breed that anytime, he's always cheerful. He's a happy-going dog. He wants to be with people, mix with people. A very easy and happy-going temperament, but within that, a very bold, a very sound character, a dog that's not timid at all, very sound all through in terms of his thinking ability, how he interacts with people, to new environment, to his surrounding and other things. Very good with children's, a very good temperament. Reliable temperament with children and with people, very, very friendly and a very bubbly attitude. I would say that way. He's always happy. He's happy to please his owner, handler, or his hunter when he's working, and with high energy. Cockers are always also a very high energy. Yes, sometimes that makes them difficult. When with two young kids, it may be a challenge because they are always high energy. Coming to characteristics, a very pleasing. That's one thing you've been asking why we have been with this breed. At least for me personally speaking, Cocker is one breed that's a melting breed. When you look into a Cocker, Cocker has such a personality that not many breeds can possess that personality. It's a wonderful, pleasing, melting personality a Cocker has. It pleases you all through. The expression of a Cocker, of an English Cocker especially, is you need to experience it. You need to see through it. to understand how melting it is. That would be a great characteristic. A cocker should be very, very pleasing and highly cheerful, happy going. So that would be a
That's
characteristic of.
that defines a dog, defines the breed basically.
Yeah, that defines a dog, and that defines the word Merry Cocker as well.
Yeah, I mean, since you have come to that Merry Cocker, our exact next question is that only. The Bangalore Merry Cocker is represented, is not gets represented many times in the standards. Can you elaborate on how critical this trait is to the breed?
See, as I was again telling, why the merry means, as I said, it should be very, very outgoing, very comfortable in all environment, ready to please its owner, handler, hunter, whatever we say. The reason why the merry is being repeated is it's a very characteristic of the breed. As you said, Merry Cocker is the typical characteristic. When you see an English Cocker Spaniel, you need to, it needs to transmit the merriness or the cheerfulness straight away to the person who's seeing the dog or who's working with the dog. That's the kind of, and practically being living with Cocker Spaniels for so many years, I can say that. The moment you meet an English Cocker Spaniel, his cheerfulness, his merriness, when you just start mingling with the dog, will get on. It is an infectious.
It gets transferred
to you also. It's such an infectious merriness that these breed have that you will get into that. You get into that also. So that's the reason the merriness in any standards are very much said. Unfortunate of late in few of the lineages. Sometimes I have seen in showings in India that we don't see these temperaments. This quality is very utmost important to an English Cocker Spaniel. That the dog needs to be very, very cheerful, merry, and full of life. And as I said, this is also stressed upon so much, as I said, because this is a hunting breed. It needs to be working individually and in open spaces and in different environments. So that kind of a sound, merry temperament or a outgoing temperament is very much required for it to effectively perform its basic whatever it was bred for, or its basic hunting duties is very much needed. And this merriness also drives it, because these dogs need to kind of scan or survey a large area of place to identify the prey and other things that it needs to flush out. So that merriness, the drive has to be there. Only then a dog will quickly move through the spaces, move through the areas in the hunting grounds to cover up the space, to sniff out the birds and other things that it is
active. The dog needs to be active.
Yeah, exactly. So it in turn, it's all correlated, and it is what it the standard, the emphasis of the merriness in the standard repeated to indicate all these things.
Okay. This is not a question, Rajni, that I'm going to ask you. It's actually an observation that I see. The merriness of the cocker, generally you see it with the wagging of the tail, right? The dog tail that goes tick, 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 tick. Now you have the issue of not docking the tail, and the tail literally goes down. So, I mean, is that a characteristic or something that now it does, like with the ban on docking of tails across the world? How do you actually now put that in the merriness part of it?
No, okay. The merriness is still very much seen through with your undocked tail also. But as you rightly said, in a dog tail, it kind of expresses itself in a different way. And as a person very passionate about Cocker Spaniel, yes, in spite of all the pros and cons of arguments of docking and non-docking, I am a person who still strongly believes that docking is necessary, because docking was not a cosmetic work. It was a necessity work, because as a hunting dog, there was a lot of challenges that a long tail would possess, and it was susceptible to injuries and other things. And there was a specific reason. Even in this modern world, though they do not do their hunting and other things, most of the cockers, but even in a house environment, because they have this merry temperament that we were talking, and as you said, it's a fast wagging tail. You can literally be whacked solid. You would really be whacked by a cocker's tail the way he will wag
Yeah.
his tail. Yeah, when he gets excited, when he sees his owner, when he's playing with your family, he gets so excited and wags his tail. So you will get whacked, and also in an environment like a house where you have so many clustered things, which is actually more advisable that an undocked cocker spaniel has a good chance that he may get his tail hurt. And a mature tail, when it gets hurt, it's an extension of your spinal cord for any dog. The tail is an extension of the spinal cord. So sometimes an injury to the spinal to the tail is very very
Very,
critical.
yeah,
And
that's true.
yeah, so this is my personal thing, but I agree. And yes, we ourselves house dogs with both dog tails and undog tails, so it doesn't make any difference. Both are very enjoyable, and the merriness, to the question that you asked, the merriness is still very very expressive. But yes, we would prefer a dog tail cocker spaniel any day over an undog cocker.
Nice, nice. Okay,
That's
moving
my
on to the
personal.
next. Moving on to the next question. Like, okay, we are going to get into the breed standards part of it. So, which cocker, either bred or owned by you, according to you, are closest to the breed standard? So, this where you like where we generally ask our expert speaker to talk about the breed standard, what exactly is the right breed standard. So, we have a lot of other questions also in regards to breed standards as well. So, I would,
Yeah, I am.
I
Yeah, I am reading a few things. I think that is all good, gets into the breed standard. So maybe we can talk about breed standards and other things that elaborate. So, like, let me put this question. I see Radhakrishnan Swaminathan ask about the right length of neck, which will also,
yeah,
I will touch upon it. About tail set, Jaisima has asked. You can also show the slide after checking with,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, sure. There has been some preparation. We have done some preparations to show about what some pictures of good cocker spaniels.
Do you want me to put it on?
Yeah, you could put it on. You could put it
Okay.
on now.
Yeah. Can you see it? Okay. This is your first slide.
Because this is just collection of some nice dogs over the last 2 3 decades. These dogs are all spanning over from mid 80s to till this day.
Okay.
I have just brought in and I have put in a collection of some nice dogs, which represent the
The
breeds
breed.
closest. Yeah, the breed standards closest, and they have been very very successful in the showing, and many of them have been successful on the whatever the field. Maybe yes, we don't have proper records here, but they have been performing on the
Field trials.
functionality part of the thing also. Maybe we can just keep going. This is a lovely cocker spaniel, solid cocker spaniel. Good head. The pleasing expression is very clearly seen here. Okay. Should we really now talk about the breed standard of an English cocker
Yeah,
spaniel?
yeah. Go ahead. So, I mean, you can just talk about in. You don't have to get into details, but you can, in general, you can always tell about what exactly is the right breed standards as such. What needs to be the right proportion of head? What needs to be the right tail set, and all that.
Okay. See, the cockers are all compact, square dogs. Your height, no, your floor to wither height to your wither to the back end of your croup, the length are all square. They are equidistant. So basically, cocker is a compact square dog, sound head, typical to any gun dog for that reason. A very sound head and an sound muscle, capable of showing a lot of strength. Because as
Okay.
I said, a cocker flush out its prey first, then it will also go and recover it. It has to retrieve it, bring it back to the hunter. So
Okay.
all these queries are going to be close to. No, a cocker should be able to easily carry a few kgs of any material with
Yeah.
in its muscle. Okay, so that's
A solid muscle is what you basically
muscle
expect
is
from.
important. The muscle and the head naturally needs to be supported and bridged to a fantastic or a good neck. So a good
Okay.
length neck. Two reasons. A good length of neck is enough length of neck for the animal to get onto the ground for it to sniff, as well as
Okay.
good length of neck will is very detrimental and instrumental for it to carry the animal. No, if the neck length or the body proportions are not in right, when it's carrying a large bird or
Right.
rabbit or something that it is retrieving, then it will become a, it hampers with its movement. It will not have enough ground clearance. It has to carry the animal well above the level of ground, so that the dog is then able to move freely without any interference when it is carrying the catch. So a good neck, naturally the strength of neck, well laidness. No, the neck has to be well laid into the shoulders. Um,
Okay.
from the shoulders, you are looking at good angulation of shoulders to give it good front reach. This helps in ground coverages. Again, as I said, we were talking about being a hunting dog, so it has to cover large areas. So good angulation, which is 45-degree shoulder blade placements to the front upper arm. So
Okay.
that is the ideal breed standard. You can see in a few of these pictures as we are running through all these dots that we will see through. This is the Crufts winner, Linwater, very famous kennel from England. One of the athletes for all their blue, for all the roans. I always admire the Linwater lineages for all the roan colorations
Okay.
breed. This is an excellent thing. You can see the soundness of the head in this picture. The entire head muscle, lovely ear sets. Then the strength of neck and how well it is laid on. The length of the neck is also very clearly seen. Now you can imagine in this position when the dog is holding a catch, anything that it is retrieving, it will surely not interfere with its movement. There is the good ground clearance. You're able to see the ground clearance that the neck will give in to
Okay.
this kind of proportions it
Yeah.
is in. From the neck, as I said, shoulder, other things gets into the we get into the briskets and the rib cage. Cocker, that is a very important thing. For that reason, for all hunting dogs and the spaniel family as such, a wonderful rib is important. A good spring of rib, that's the right word that is used. A good spring of rib is where it helps you to accommodate a lot of lung space that gives the animal the capability to breathe well, a lot of oxygen. So this is all associated. No, it's typical mechanics. No, all this help a dog efficiently perform its work. So a good lung room, as well sprung rib is very very important on an English Cocker Spaniel, because that allows good development of the chest, a good lung space, which in turn how it helps. It helps in getting in good oxygen into the dog, which again all helps it to have the drive, the tenacity to work long. No, a dog should be able to work hours
Yeah.
together in the field. So that is it. And overall compactness, as you said, the rib gauge then extends to the loin area and the croup area. Uh, Cocker, it is really, really important. The loin and the croup are not long, they are compact, so that they give overall compactness picture and a short bodied thing. Cocker has to be short bodied and compact. That's the primary thing of the breed. The breed's major emphasis goes into compactness of the breed. As I said, they are square, they have to be compact. This compactness is what gives you the strength. This compactness gives overall strength to the breed
Okay.
in terms of which is again which gets connected to the workability of the dog. And nice angulations, both rear and front. You need to have nice angulations. uh, when you say angulation, not over exaggerated, you can see in these pictures the kind of angulation a good cocker should have. This is exactly what it is needed for excellent drive. Again, the rear angulation and the rear construction is all that is giving the drive. Though the front would give, you are talking about good angulation in the front for the reach, but the drive, the entire drive of any breed, for that example, most of the hunting dogs, most of the working breeds, the drive comes from the rear of the dog. No, the construction
Yeah.
of the rear angulations and other things is what gives you the good part of the drive. So a right angulation. And in cockers, very important when you are talking about the hindquarters on the breed standard, low on hawk. Your ground to hawk heights have to be quite small, low. That's what the term, the breed standard says, low on hawk, which in turn is a dynamic, is a no, it's again an engineering stuff. No, the way your balances are there between your upper thigh, your lower thigh, and hocks and other things is how the construction, the proportions determines the drive, the entire movement of your dog. When I say it's for the English Cocker Spaniel. So this is
What about the
all.
tail set? What is the right tail set for the breed as such?
Right tail set, as we have been seeing a lot of pictures, most of these dogs that you have seen here are all got the right tail set. It is marginally below the top line. You can't. It's a very fine thing. It's very very marginal. It's a very nice curvy flow from the spinal line, because if you see an English Cocker Spaniel, even the top line, English Cocker Spaniel do not have a flat top line. They have a nice smooth top line, which from the croup, just above the croup, you see them nicely curved and flowing down. And as that flow neatly flows down to the hind side, marginally, it's a very small thing that it needs to be. The tail set is marginally below the level of spinal top line.
Top line. Okay.
Yeah, not
So that's
too low,
basically the right top line.
It cannot be in line with the top line. It has to be marginally below the top line. That's the ideal tail set. Any lower would be called as a low tail set. Yes, yeah, which at times we do see in most of the cockers. Sometimes we do see low tail set, which is one of the faults that is observed. But the ideal tail set would be that what we discussed.
Perfect. So, I mean, in line with breed standards, we have. I mean, our next question is going to be in with regards to breed standard. How dentition? What is the correct dentition in cockers? And would you, as a breeder, penalize missing dentitions or wrong bite? Meaning that would you breed out of such individuals?
Okay, thanks. This is a very nice question. Because I have to say, one of my big winning dog also had I wouldn't say it was not see the breed standard. Let's say first, what is the breed standard says about dentition in cockers? It says scissor bite and all intact 42 teeth. That is what the breed standard says for an English Cocker Spaniel. So it is strict scissor bite. That's what the standard says. But yes, in my own personal experience and worldwide, whatever I have learned and discussed, missing teeth is something that we need to penalize. Missing teeth is not surely permissible or permissible in an English Cocker Spaniel, and it is considered as a serious fault. Again, I'll associate it because these are again hunting breeds. So hunting breeds, as I said, they have to retrieve. So a good dentition and because why again we are talking about dentition? A hunting dog that retrieves cannot puncture its catch. When they are retrieving, they need to also have a very soft bite onto the prey, wherein without puncturing the prey is where they should be able to carry the animal back. That is another essential aspect that's looked into most of the retrieving dogs. So a full, complete dentition would be utmost importance. But when now coming on the bite part, which is the scissor bite part, over the years we have seen, we have heard a few times where you get a slightly level bite on a cocker, which is not actually a level bite, but for some reason, some misalignment of a canine teeth or something, at times it tends to be like that. So it is up to an individual perspective because, as I said, if such faulty dentitions are due to circumstantial, environmental challenges or reasons, it could be that it is not getting passed on to the next generation, other things. So it's okay, it is acceptable because level bite is also acceptable. To my basic understanding, level bite, if your cocker has rather than a scissor bite, it has got close to a level bite or a level bite, it is okay, it is acceptable. Most probably, it is not penalized as a major fault. But anything as undershot or any other deviation, other dentition fault is a sure serious thing that needs to be considered a serious fault or a deviation from the breed standard. But a level bite many times are passed on. As I said, if it is the individual perspective, again, how we look at it. And whether we are willing to breed out of these individuals, again, as I said, it is an individual choice. We need to be very mindful. It was if these kind of issues are due to environmental or other reasons, then yes, you have a very clear that it is not going to be passed on to the next generation. Yes, why not? Then you should do it. If you have all the good virtues on a particular dog or a bitch that you want to get from it, please, you should go ahead and try it out. I would say it's no. I would put it like this: it's no harm in trying to breed out of them once and see if they are passing
If
on
they're
these
passing
things.
on the genes, yeah.
If this, as I said, this I am only telling with respect to the level bite, which I learned and understood over years. But any other fault, yes, it is a serious deviation from the standard. Then I would say we should not breed out of that. But maybe this level bite alone, I would give it a second chance if I know the particular animal that we are looking at it has got all
It's
the
not,
other.
it's not, yeah, it
Yeah,
doesn't
if
pass it
all
on
of
hereditary or anything else.
exactly,
That's true.
exactly.
Yeah, that's right. So the next question that I have with you is, this is a word that is actually associated with pugs, if I remember my standards right.
You are
So
right. You
what
are
does the
right.
word
Yes.
copy mean? Though it is not captured in the standards, it's a word commonly used for correct cocker type admixed breeders. So actually, do they use the word copy? Because I haven't heard people actually refer to a cocker as a copy dog. I mean, as I said, right, the copy dog is generally the pug is what is referred to as a copy dog. So I mean, is it something that happens, is prevalent now?
Okay. You are very correct. First, I think the copy word is generally associated with breeds like pug and other highly small, compact breed dogs.
Yeah.
To my knowledge, with my friends abroad, alone, the word copy. I don't know. Even in India, not many people use the word copy for English cockers. But I've seen, especially our friends from Australia, use the word copy more in English cockers. I have not seen much of breeders from Europe also use. A little bit of breeders from England, yeah, use this word cobby. And primarily, I've seen this word used when the English cockers are in the puppy stage. When
Okay.
the puppy, when they are very young and
Chubby.
less than 3 months old, this term is highly used. The word cobby. Basically,
Okay.
it again, as you said, being yourself a pug man for many years, the cobbiness indicates what? About compactness.
Yeah,
The word
exactly.
cobby generally, at least when you said wherever it is referred in the doggy world elsewhere, it refers to compactness. So I have seen that many of our friends and many of the breeders were, as I said, mostly in Australia and on the English side, they have associated the word cobbiness to compactness.
Yeah.
So when they refer copy, and I've seen this highly used in the initial puppy stage when the dogs, when they are young dogs, the word copy is more used, but
More use.
generally it disappears as
As the dog grows.
exactly when the dog matures into an adult. It is more referred to as he looks compact. But when the
Okay.
puppy stage, they say the puppy is copy. So
Okay.
that's the word
I
here.
think then I think then the word copy can actually be used for all puppies in general, I suppose. When they are like chubby and
Absolutely.
cute and small, I think yeah, I think it's
More
a very common
compactness.
terminology. Yeah.
The right thing, see, I would associate cobbiness to compactness because compactness is actually a very big thing when we talk about doggy. No, to
That
be
is
compact is also indicative that you are in proportionate. You are very, there is strength in this. There is no. It means multiple. There are multiple meaning to this word. So, word cobby means indicating a puppy or a dog that is well balanced, that is put together, sound and strong, has good bones and structure. like these, and also overall the body compactness is also mentioned, because as I said already, cocker, English cocker spaniel is a square breed, and that is very important from a cocker's perspective in the breeds.
Nice, nice. One aspect about English Cocker Spaniel is basically our next question is the coat. How difficult is it to maintain a cocker coat? Because I have seen you I've seen you before dog shows where you have spent the entire day getting the ring ready or rather the show ready, go back at 10 o'clock at night, work on your cocker till like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, and come back again at 6 o'clock to the show ring. So how difficult is it to maintain the coat of a cocker? And
Okay.
what's actually the coat type, correct type as such?
Thanks for citing this. Yeah, this only happens when we run our Madras Canine Club show. Luckily, yes, for other shows we didn't have these challenges. Okay, yes, English Cocker Spaniels are a double-coated breed. They have a undercoat and a feathery outcoat. Yes, today, actually speaking, English Cocker Spaniel, when you look into the breed standards, they need not be profusely coated. They are a working breed, so there is not much emphasis on a profuse coating. But there is emphasis on a good undercoat, very good double on an overall double coat and a good undercoat, because
Okay.
they need to be able to withstand cold temperatures, and have a good undercoat also protects them when they are busy doing their hunting work in undergrowths, in thorny bushes and other things. And even the long ears, the featherings on long ears, all the coats also, wherever a cocker spaniel has got coat, it also actually has a lot of implication to the work it was built and it has been doing over years. All these basically these extra featherings protect the dog when it is busy doing its hunting work. Long ears help it gathers scent. No, a long ear helps like a funnel. It basically the ears help. You know, when the dog puts its head down and nose onto the floor, the ears swipe on both sides and act like a funnel, channelizing all the air and the scent things to the dog's nose. So
No,
it is
okay.
all these small features in a dog basically are bred to enhance its performance for the whatever the major purpose the breed was bred for. These features enhance it, and also the featherings on the chest, on the featherings on the leg, everything helps protect the thing. Yes, now coming to the coat care and coat thing, yes, in India it has been a challenge. I personally over the years have seen, yes, because tropical climate, most of our country, again we have high humidity. So generally, what I have found out, English Cocker Spaniels, for whatever good or bad reasons, they seem to be more sensitive to humidity. Humidity
Okay.
is a bigger challenge than that thing. So a good coat care is, I don't know how to go about. The correct coat type would be flat coat. You generally don't prefer curliness on an English Cocker Spaniel. The coat has to be flat and free of waviness and curlinesses or curls in it. Even waviness, yes, marginal wavy coats are acceptable, but it is still preferable to have flat and smooth coat. The coat has to be straight. And yes, wherever you have profuse coating, a little bit of waviness is okay. As I said, it has to be a double coat with good undercoat. But yes, when we bring in dogs, generally I have seen when I've imported dogs, we have found that they do have good undercoat. But over a couple of season in India, most probably I've seen them losing these undercoat. Maybe I have, unfortunately, I've always raised my dog in Chennai, which is highly humid and hot. Maybe yes, if there were I know up north in many other places where the climate is much better. Yes, you can surely raise a cocker with the double coat, intact undercoat can be achieved. At least in the winter season, they surely start generating the undercoat, double coat, undercoat, which is very good. That's when it gives the fullness. When you touch the coat of a cocker, you need to get that feel of a fullness. That
Okay.
fullness generally comes when you have adequate undercoat. Otherwise, you will see that when you sink in your hands into the coat, you will just see that you will see a lot of coat, but when you really sink in, you will not see the volume of the coat.
Okay.
But that is very important. It is not about profuse coating or how long your coat is. It is how dense or how close your coat is, how much volume your coat has got. That is very important on a cocker coat type. In terms of maintenance, I wouldn't say it is difficult. It is about, again, we all choose a breed, whatever breed we like. So the day you decided to work with a long coat breed, it is understood that you need to be willing to spend that extra time as compared to a short coat breed on the coat part. No, this is like one more. No, it's like you wearing additional coat jacket or something. So you need to care for that thing. That's how it is extra thing. I would look at these things. Primarily, at least 15-20 minutes. A good brushing, no checking on the coat, a thorough brush of the coat, a release of any mats and tangles on the coat. Then checking on if there are any foreign particles, objects that are trapped inside the coat. No, get those things cleaned up because of any allergy or anything. For example, this is a breed that is very busy. It keeps running. He's not going to be quiet. Our English cocker is always busy. So
Yes.
when he's doing all his work or he's running on the lawn or other things, he may carry or pick up grass seeds or any other plant material. So basically, a regular daily grooming, I would put it at about 15-20 minutes is what it takes to thoroughly groom a cocker, not more than that, even with a good show coat. I have personally done it. If you would daily do this exercise, it's only 15 minutes. Yeah, if you miss your routines and if you skip through it,
Yeah, it
then yes,
becomes,
it
becomes a
becomes
cumbersome process.
a hectic task. But if you can daily do it, even as I said, 15 minutes is good enough on a daily basis. This helps maintain the coat. It helps you bond with the animal very well. Then it also helps reduce shedding, because when you groom the dog on a regular basis, you are able to remove off all the dead loose hairs on a regular fashion. So then you would not have shedding all through it, all through the places. So you are able to associate it. So that is what I would say. And in terms of difficulty, yes, as I said, climate is a challenge. Otherwise, I don't think there is a major challenge. But yes, nutrition plays a very important role. All kind of a balanced diet. Let me put it like that. Instead of breaking down things, a good balanced diet is very important. We have found
That's
some very good success methods. We practice barf, which is raw food. Raw food really helps bring in good coat on any dog for that reason, not only English Cocker Spaniel. Then certain supplements. I have found coconut oil. Many oils do the work, but coconut oil, after many years of trial, I have found coconut oil
coconut oil to
really,
be.
yeah, yeah. Uh,
That's good.
then again, when you go to the maintenance part, again, the ritual of grooming, washing your dog is also very important. At least I strongly recommend that you wash your dog weekly once with a good quality conditioner. Shampoo and conditioner needs to be of very good quality. This is something I've learned over years, that you need to use silicone-free products, because most of the conditioners, cheap, because that's the cosmetic industry. So conditioners or shampoos do contain silicone. Silicone is a very bad thing. It generally builds up on your coat, irrespective, as I said, whether it is any cocker spaniel or anything. For any breeder, for any novice, for any person who's trying to maintain a good coat, ensure you use silicone-free products in your the shampoos and conditioners that you use, because it tends to build up, then it crystallizes and it breaks the coat. So the conditioners and other things should not be more of an artificially synthesized product. They should be of more natural conditioning materials. So a good conditioner, I would say, is at most important for maintaining a good coat, at least as far as Cocker Spaniel is concerned. At least weekly washing, or whenever it is necessary. It is another way to do it. If you feel your coat is neat and clean, is tangle free, is free flowing and neat, as a neat and clean, then you need not wash. You can even extend it. But if you feel you have stickiness, your coat is tangled up, even in
Matted
spite
or
of the washing, then it's time that you need to wash him and rejuvenate the coat. and moisturizing the coat. I think that's what a good conditioner helps you moisturize the coat very well, and that helps maintain the coat very well also.
Perfect. Since you're talking about coat and conditioners and how to, we have another question, and we also have a question from one of our regular viewers, Mr. Tinker. He was also our guest last week. Mr. Tinker
Yes.
has asked how easy or difficult is it to breed an English Cocker to groom? What are special cares and tips would you suggest while grooming its long years and keeping them clean? So this is one half of the question. The other half of the question is basically about what you touched just a minute back about shampoos and conditioners. Okay, you address that question, then we'll come on to this. That will be much easier.
Perfect. No problem. Okay, how easy or difficult breed is English Cocker to groom? Okay, grooming is an art. Again, it's a very passionate thing that we need to learn. It takes quite some time. God willing and blessing, I have been helped and tutored by a few of my cocker breeders from whom I imported cockers, like Tony Ham. She has been very instrumental in initially teaching us on grooming and other related stuff. Then I have to give a lot of credit to Hele, yet another cocker breeder who helped us, who shared her cocker from Denmark, who came all the way. She brought us the cocker. She just not only sent her. Hele gave us the dog. She brought it all the way to India, and she spent a week with us. And during that time, she taught us a lot of important things and grooming and other things. So I wouldn't say it is easy or tough. I would put it at a midway. It is about your interest to learn about it. But yes, sure. As I said, you need to spend that time. Again, I told, grooming is a daily routine. It's a ritual. You need to do it on a daily basis. Grooming is something, again, weekly or monthly. You need to have a schedule. You need to keep regularly working. This way, you are also learning and you are also tuning your skills. And also the dog or that is very important. Such regular routine practices also indirectly trains your dog or animal to cooperate, to accept this entire process. See, finally, sometimes no, it's a spirited dog, as we already spoken, and for any animal, they may not understand what you are trying to do out of them. So a regular routine habitual thing, no, will help them also understand that grooming is an enjoyable process. It binds, as I said, really grooming is one area where I personally feel you get maximum binded to your dog. You get
That's
to
true.
create a rapport. It's a fantastic platform where you get to bind with your dog. So English Cocker would be like this. It is neither too hard or too easy. It's a midway. It is about you learning, getting the hands on it. When I started learning, yes, it took at least 2-3 years by the time I really could decently start grooming an English Cocker Spaniel. Yes, there are challenges in areas like ears, the grooming of ears, grooming of hindquarters close to the hock area. Similarly, grooming the front shoulder blade area and other things is always, these are the technically challenging areas in English Cocker Spaniel. So it just needs to be learnt and you need to practice it. Even today, I would say I'm still learning and practicing it.
But as the thinker had said, the ears part of it, I know you take a special attention when it comes to the grooming of the ears and basically safeguarding that coat in that ear part. So can you give us some
Yes.
tips on that?
Sorry, I missed out. As I was talking to you, I missed out on it. Yes, the ear care. It's a very important thing. As we all know, English Cocker, or for most of the Cocker Spaniels and Spaniel breeds, have long ears. What we do, see, you need to ensure you protect the featherings of the ears safely, so that you retain the texture and other things. We use a small material called snood. It's like a bag with yeah, I would call it as a small headgear, just like how ladies wear a shower cap or something. This is a small headgear. It's called a snood. Snood. It's very much available in the market. So we always ensure our cockers are with the snood while they are on the walk, while they are on the free run, while they eat, drink. we try to ensure the cocker is on a snood. And second thing, as you said, when they are eating, you can use the snood and you can remove them off. But when the dogs are there, and yes, they still will have to drink the water. So ideal would be to either have an elevated feeding bowl. No, if you are not using a snood, then you need to be very, very mindful that you feed cockers on an elevated platform, which I generally don't prefer because it's not a very natural position of feeding. So it's better to use a snood and allow the dog to feed naturally from a floor level. But yes, at least the water, the drinking aspect, it is always advisable to ensure cocker spaniels have water from a raised surface. So this way, when they drink from a raised surface, the ears are not moistened often. So this keeps the ear texture safe. This also, when no, this moisture is also indirectly responsible. No, whenever a dog gets its ears dirty and wet through these process of eating, drinking, and no, even when the dogs are on a free run without a snood, what happens is they by accidentally step upon their ears because their ears are dragging on the floors. So when they are moving profusely and scenting on the scent trail, they do sometimes stamp upon their ears also. So this is prone to some injury, or it can damage the coat and other things there. So a snood would be a very, very effective way. This is predominantly used for all long eared dogs. Not only I'm sure you would have observed. You would have observed, at least we have all been traveling and showing, even in breeds like Afghan hound, Basset hounds, many of the long eared breed and long coated breed with where the ears have got long coat. They use these snoods to keep the ears safe from all these things. So this is a very, very effective methodology to ensure you keep the ears free from the infection part also. And yes, to maintain the ear, see, because any long ear dogs has a longer ear canal, so you need
That's
to regularly check them. That's why I said a grooming. Grooming is not only about just brushing your dog and other things. That 15 minutes is the time when you take adequate time to check your overall dog. You check the ear canal daily, check your anal canals, ensure if there is any dirt or other things, clean it out on a daily basis. Sometimes some kind of ear drops would help. No, there are many ear drops, but I would still not recommend it on a regular basis. Only when necessary, it is warranted to use a ear drop. But I think you can just have a hot water with cotton buds to clear the ear, or spirit with cotton. Just clean your ear canals, keep it neat and clean and dry. That is very important. Keep it dry. That's why I said a smooth
we
with.
got a picture of the snood. This is what you're basically
Yes,
talking about.
yes, yeah. That's one of my dogs. Whenever we travel, anytime they are always on the snood. A lot of people have questioned me, saying that when you're covering the ear, will it not be stuffy for the dog? Is it not? As I said, it's not that it needs to be left completely on the dog. No, when the dog is left on the course of the day in the kennel and other things, sure, it has to be removed. But whenever he's traveling, when he's playing, when he's on the walk, when he's having his food, I would strongly recommend that you need to put on a snood so that the ear is kept safe and sound.
Okay, perfect. So, Rajani, just briefly, that since you were talking about this, as I said, no, there's a two-part question basically. You were talking about shampoos and conditioners and how important that actually plays a lot of role. Since you've already told that what you not need to buy in a conditioner, I have seen you import or rather get conditioners and shampoos from abroad. I've seen you pick up stuff, and we have traveled abroad as well on shows and everything. So can you just briefly tell us what exactly is the right shampoo to use or on a cocker, or what is the right conditioner that you basically, because I know you have been doing a lot of practical R&D with a lot of products over the so many course of years, and you have almost like gotten the right mix of it as well.
Okay, as you said, any shampoo, all mild shampoos are good as long as they don't have any harsh. Because, sorry, I have to admit that I'm not able to properly define that here. As you said, I am in a different location. I don't have my resources today with me. Otherwise, if I had home, yeah. But any mild shampoo, without any of the harsher chemicals, primarily, the aloe vera base or any kind of natural oil based shampoos, mild based shampoos, detergent. Yes, that is another word, right word. You please watch out for the detergents in it. No, ensure that there is not heavily detergent based. No, many shampoos are detergent based because they want the shampoo to just flush out things. We are not looking at something like that for a cocker spaniel, or for that reason for all dogs itself. You should not use any shampoo or washing product that is highly detergent based. Need to be mild based. So that would be from the shampoo point of view. Coming to the conditioner, as I said, look out for silicone free. No silicone on conditioners, because silicone is a cheap alternative to be used in conditioner to give you that non-stickiness. Basically, when you use conditioner on any coat, or for that reason on any of our any hair, the conditioner ensures the coat is soft and is free.
Yeah.
So indirectly, many commercial products use silicon-based additives to achieve this, but that should not be the thing. Conditioners again should be out of natural materials. There are a lot of natural like aloe vera is a very good natural conditioner available. Your egg white is a fantastic natural conditioner. This is all we traditionally use. I'm sure most of our viewers are well aware of it. Then even milk proteins, derivatives of milk proteins are an excellent source of conditioner. So you need to again look for the right conditioner, understand what is inside. The reason I used to be importing, yes, because I still strongly feel in India, no one makes those kind of the reasons for me to import conditioners and shampoo was the kind of quality. I was
Okay.
not getting that kind of quality, but I am not very sure. Maybe today things have improved. It's been close to 2.5 years I have moved, but over the last 5 years, even when I was there in the last leg, there were a few good products. I should say, currently, even in India, we do get a lot of good products, and many imported products have started coming in through. But as you said, when you are talking with the days, good old days, it's about
That's
close
true.
to 15 years before when I first imported my coppers. Yes, I had no good products in this market. So I made it a point that I will import the right products to use it on the dog so that I'm able to maintain the coat. So I would only say, and one more thing I would like to add is, if personally I have tried this out, but it's a little mess work. But you can always soak your dog coat with any kind of oil. Coconut oil, again, I would give a lot of weightage, or any kind of moisturizing oils can be used to moisturize the coat. You can apply on the coat.
Before the bath you're talking about.
Yes, yes, yes. Even on a regular basis, many people. That's what. If you are able to have a fairly dust-free environment, and if you have an environment where you can manage that, you can apply oil,
Coconut oil.
very mild oil onto the coat, which helps retain and moisturize the coat. So this
Okay.
again, in turn, gives a lot of positive effect on your coat, Siddhu.
Perfect. Perfect. So, okay, moving on to the next question, Rajini. This is about the colors. I mean, there are various colors which are acceptable in English Cocker. While breeding, is it common practice to mix solid and tones?
Okay, English Cocker, yes, it's a fantastic breed that way. If you see the breed standard itself says color various. So English Cockers can generally come in any color. A full white is not acceptable, as much as I know. You surely need to have double color when it comes to white. No, white is the background color. You should have some amount of patch colors or some colorations other than white. A full white is not acceptable, and you rarely come to see something like the brindle. No, you don't get to see something like that on a cocker. Those
Okay.
kind of colors are also not much, but rest any other color for all your roans. Roans itself comes in so much of variations. Then you have solid colors, which is liver gold, or golden cocker, and the black. So those have your three variants. Then even in solids, you have this bisolids, which is black and tan. Then similarly, you have the combination of liver and tan also. You get that combination also. So cockers, yes, colors are unrestricted. It's a breed with can come
Many
in
colors.
many colors. Yeah. Now coming to very proper breed, when you get into the show aspect and the breeding aspect of the color, yes, color is then very well defined. You define them as roans. In roans, you have the blue roans, you have the orange roans, the liver roans. Those would be the major roan population. Then on the solids, you have liver, gold, and black. Yes, this is a big question, and this is some amount of research and experimentation and experiences we have ourselves done. World over, there are two schools of thought. One school doesn't agrees mixing solids and roans. They are very, very strong. They believe strongly on keeping the solid lines as solid lines and the roan lines as roan lines. In many countries and many places, they don't mix them at all. And I've also personally seen in Europe, predominantly throughout Europe, the lean, the type of the dog, the solid dog types are slightly marginally different to the dog types, the roan dog types. No, or the dogs of the roan colorations, the breed type, the way they look marginally. I'm not saying there are much exaggeration. Finally, there are the same breeds, but the solid coloration dogs have tend to look marginally different to that of the roan. But elsewhere in the world, in Australia, in England, in America, I have not seen that much of difference. Irrespective of the colors, they look the same. And I have seen many places, many of my friends, many of my breeders, friends whom I know, successfully breed out of mixing colors also. They do now and then bring in party colors, that's the roan colors, into the solids to acquire certain desired features and genes into the thing. So they do mix and they have been very successful. I have also experimented and I have also done this. But I wouldn't say I have been that much successful because we got a lot of mismatch. Whenever you mix roans and solids, you tend to get a lot of mismatch of colors. Where the proportions of the colors, the eye colors, the ear coatings, those things are not evenly, and they don't. Finally, when the dog grows, they don't appeal. From the color point, from the evenness of the coloration, they're not very nice. Or some vice versa, you get solid white patches in the chest or in the underneath the belly areas and other things on a solid dog, which also only marginally, you can only have very minuscule white colorations in these areas on solids. But when you do this mixing of colors, you tend to get a larger color patches in this, which is called a mismatch, which is not again preferred. So it's up to us. If you need some desired qualities, you can try this practice. It is successful or unsuccessful is up to the lines that you are working with.
Perfect. As you were talking, like in terms of the solids and those things, Sudarshan has also asked this question. I've also seen it. I think a lot of people have actually seen this. Judges, I mean, is there a partiality when it comes to dogs with solid colors actually winning than the party colors or blue roans, or it is just one myth? Did you say this as a myth, or do judges actually get attracted to the solid colors more? Because
Okay,
you have had solids as well as roans. So in your aspect, in your showing aspect, which have you had more success with?
Okay, personally speaking, I have had more success with my blue roans or the roan cockers, the party colors, as Mr. Sudarshan had told. Sir, thanks for the question. Again, I would go back to many, many years, about 15 years before. I think we would have been chatting in your house. Personally, that time we were talking that blue roans, especially blue roans, for that reasons. Blue roan is one color that has dominated the cocker breed world over. It's the most dominant or popular color world over, and I personally feel that the blue roans dominate more. The next color that would dominate in the showroom would be black, a solid black or a solid gold, but I still think solid blacks dominate more next to the blue roans. Yes, preference sometimes may be there. See, after all, judging is a very individualistic. It's a choice. Though we know everything, when there are two good dogs equally matched to each other, then yes, sometimes color choice may come into a picture. It is very subjective matter, which I personally would say we should not touch upon much. But irrespective, yeah, this is a fantastic slide to show the various colors. So it's very difficult. I'm sure everybody would prefer one color. We all have our own choices. Uh, but I think given the way forward, roans, my personal opinion is blue roan is a color that tends to dominate the showing
More.
and the decision also more, or even maybe judges prefer blue roans over the rest of the colors because they are very flashy. They are very flashy, expressive. They look very great. No, a very nicely marked blue roan is quite a amazing dog to see.
Perfect. Nice. So, I mean, moving on to the next question. So, what are the common health problems that you actually find with? Is there any genetical issues that the cockers tend to carry over the period of years, or I mean, are they susceptible to any other other regular illnesses that dogs get?
See, on a normal basis, cockers are actually quite a healthy breed. You don't see much problems. Traditionally speaking, English Cocker Spaniels are not prone to. They don't have much disease around them. But of late, with a lot of health testing and other things that are coming, today health testing has become a major aspect of breeding and rearing dogs. So now you have a lot of things that have come around the English Cocker Spaniels, or I would say maybe they were there earlier without all these health testing facilities. They were really not discussed or spoken about in the yesteryears. But now with these facilities coming, we are very much one of the things that is looked upon is the eye. No, Cocker Spaniel and eye related diseases are a major challenges in today's thing. So we all, it is almost becoming a mandate or a must worldwide that people do their eye testing, PRA testing, and other things, and make sure whether they are PRA clear or they are carriers. And based on it, you decide to know how to go further on your breeding and other things. So that is a very important thing. Eye-related diseases would be there. Then even there are some times, you talk about hip dysplasia, but not much. But yes, there are a little bit of talk on those areas also when you come to health problem. But predominantly, the biggest health problem that's being spoken about is PRA, which is pro-retinal syndrome, which is a very important thing that today people work on. Make sure because it also it's a real concern because cataract and other related diseases are all associated with that syndrome. So that is something that's looked upon today.
Okay, super. Okay, we are running out of time, but I can still squeeze in two more questions. One question that we have is from our viewer, basically Mr. Nihal Narayanan, who has contributed most to English Cocker in India. Could you name a few important individuals, kennels, etc. of the same? So, who do you think basically developed the breed? I would like let me rephrase the question in a different way to you then. Who basically developed the breed in India? I mean, your remembrance of who developed the breed in India? Because for me, I think I remember Romalanti is one person. I think I keep forgetting the gentleman's name from Coimbatore. I think you're
Mr. From Coimbatore.
Yeah. No, okay. Anyway, so you go ahead. You tell me who do you think influenced the breed as such in India?
Okay, first of all, yes, there are a lot of people who have done a lot of work on English Cocker Spaniels in the years. Even before when I think I only started my doggy journey in late 90s. But English Cockers has been very popular. I have also seen one question asked by Mr. Sudarshan and others about older years Cockers, Cockers from the older generations. Unfortunately, I have not got the opportunity to see many of the dogs. In my generation, I was not able to see many of those dogs. But in India, in South, I think Mr. Ram has had many wonderful dogs. Pond-side kennels were always known for their Cocker Spaniels. Then I have also heard about Ushan's kennels, Colonel Sanan from Bangalore. In my early days, they had a lot of dogs, and they have been breeding and contributing the breed. Then Coimbatore, I think it is Mr. Uday Chandra that you
Uday
are
Chandra.
referring to.
Yes,
He was
exactly. That's the name that I was
one of
actually looking for.
the
Uday
earliest
Chandra.
person. I have been very fortunate to have bred out of them. Then I also know for Prithvi Raj from Coimbatore. Where I started, he was another youngster like me who was very active and who had some nice cockers mixed out of
You're talking about
Uday.
Mr. D. Krishnamurthy from Kingsways.
Yes. So he was another person those days. Then up north, Calcutta has been always. I really have to apologize to all my Calcutta friends. I am not able to recall their name. As I said, I have literally forgotten. I have to admit that I think not into talks. I have to admit it. But Calcutta has been always a very strong hunting ground for Cocker Spaniels. I have heard about a lot of very good breeders and dogs that were living in Calcutta. Even today, there is a very considerable quality Cocker Spaniel population in Calcutta. Now and then, people breed a fantastic dog. And up north also, Mr. Mahesh Chaudhary. In when I started, as you said, I've learned this from Romla Auntie and others also. Yes, in south of Langlush Canal from Romla Auntie side were one of the pioneers when I started cockers. They were breeding a lot of champions. Even Mr. Subhash Babu of Hyderabad Canine Club used to have a top dog from Romla Auntie's kennel, which used to do a lot, which had done a lot of winning and was quite a top dog in its years. I have to mention that these are some of the big winning dogs. Then also when I started my career, again going back to Mr. Ram and Mrs. Mariam Ram had imported a beautiful black dog, Dakin's Pack of Lies from Australia. And I know he just stormed the showings on his arrival. The dog came in, and right from the day it was shown in for the first, he used to be winning. He had won multiple Western shows in Ooty and other places when he just started his career itself. It's a beautiful dog that I could see live, and I had the opportunity to breed out of him also. And as to mention Mr. Mahesh Chaudhary, he was one Mahesh Chaudhary, and also Mr. Rajendra Malhotra. Mahesh Chaudhary had some nice dogs on the west side, Bombay, on the western belt. I know him. He had a lot of good cockers, and he was breeding a lot of good cockers when I started. And Mr. Rajendra Malhotra, I have to mention, he had some of the best dogs up north. And I also know Mr. Mukul Ved and Anjali Ved. They had some lovely dogs from Charbonel. I think it's Silver Cloud, Charbonel Silver Cloud, something like that, if I remember the name right. He was a wonderful dog. Very unfortunate. He only had a very short stay. Unfortunately, that dog was not there for a long time. But Mr. Rajendra Malhotra is a person to mention. Early 90s and all, they had some top quality English cockers, English imports from Abracadabra kennels from England. Lovely ones. They were very much typey, true Corby, compact Cocker Spaniels, very sound, and lovely blue roams. The colorations we were talking, there were some nice blue roams that they had, and he was breeding, and for a long time, they had some lovely cockers to show and exhibit in India.
Oh, perfect. Nice. So yeah, we'll get take one more question. I think this is actually a nice question that has come down at the last fag end of our session. Mr. Prem, Paul Prem has asked, what's the age when the puppy cocker has a complete coat? Is this was address already excused? Okay, no, I don't think this was actually addressed. So what age actually that the full coat of the dog actually appears?
Okay, this is again very subjectable thing, but on a normal basis, a cocker will take close to about 14 months, let me say 12 to 14 months to come off his full coat. But again, it is quite dependable on the lineage. Individual lines have individual characteristics. Again, between solid and blue roams. Solid tends to have their coat. No? The solid color dogs have a differential coat structure. They take a little longer. Solid dogs, especially golds, are not as profusely coated as the blacks and liver roans are. So they take more time. They are a little low on coat. And the second thing is blue roans. Blue roans and the roan family have more coat. So again, that's the thing. So about 14 months would be the ideal thing to put forward.
Okay. This is a question that I ask all our the guests who appear. So, name 3 cockers that you have bred or owned or shown or imported or whatever that you feel were the best in your kennel, and 3 cockers that you have seen across the globe or the world that you say that were up to you, that when you like, see, it's again an individual perspective, that 3 cockers that you felt were the best dogs that have actually been there till date.
Okay, I would again go back to whatever it quickly wrap up a thing. The slides world over, many dogs I like. That's the reason I presented the slide show. Whatever dogs that were highlighted on the slide shows are some of the dogs that I really like. Uh, Many of them, not only for their breed type and what they look, but for what they have contributed to for the breed. Most of the solid dogs that I have brought in today, if you see, even go back to the history or even the current top winning solid dogs, invariably you will see these names behind the pedigree. Similarly, the blue down dogs that we have shown here also, you would see most of them coming back on these big, current top winning dogs will also carry these. The Phoenix Fast Star was one of the nicest dogs from Australia that we always aspired, and I was very fortunate that I finally got his grandson, which is Oscar, our own first import, which is Tarendale. It's about me. So other dogs that I have not owned or bred, whatever in these slides would be what it is. And dogs that I have owned and bred, yes, surely my first favorite would go to my best dog, which is Oscar, which is Tarendale sits about me. He is so, I would till today, of all my dogs, he is the dog that I've got closest to the breed standard. And in terms of temperament, whatever. He is a complete package and he's a true Cocker Spaniel. No, for me, he's been the best thing. Very unfortunate. We were not able to continue his legacy, or we were not able to take forward the gene pool. That was it. But then other dogs, then Dazzler is Stardust Collier from. That's my second import. Unfortunately, I said I missed. I kind of lost my memories on dogs so much.
No worries, no worries.
I not even recall the name of my own dogs. So he is the next best dog I would say that I owned. I've not bred him, but I have owned. And off late, something about my breeding, I would say recently we bred one solid dog. Again, I am not able to recall his name. He's a young dog. He's about 2 years old, which I personally feel. I think I have bred. We bred it. It was an association that we bred. Myself and my brother bred. He is called Wizcraft Wolf Moon. He is one of the dogs that we have bred very closest to the standard. He looks very much. He's a solid gold. So these are the 3 dogs I would like to mention. But all my other bitches, I have to give a lot of credit to my bitches. I've been very fortunate to have imported 2 bitches, which is where we have been
help you produce with the lines that you have at the moment. That's actually very true. I think this was also touched upon by Mr. Sanjit Mohanty when you were talking about German Shepherd. He said there's a lot of weightage given to the males, but he says there must be weightage given to the females more than the males, because they are the ones who actually produce the top winning dogs.
Absolutely.
And the ones that you see at the moment. Perfect. On that note, we will bring this session to an end. It's more than our actual time that we generally do our sessions, but it was an interesting one. So we did have a couple of questions coming at the last fag end. I am pretty sure Mr. Mohanty, Mr. Saran, we will address your questions offline for sure, because we don't have time to take it up right now. But we will definitely address your questions offline. Any questions that have been left that has not been addressed here, rest assured that Rajni will address it offline during the course of the week. Thank you so much, Rajni, for joining in today and giving us this wonderful session. Uh, the last words before we leave.
Yes, quickly, as I said, I want to thank you all for giving me the opportunity. I want to thank all the viewers who have patiently heard me through. I would like to apologize if at all I have not been able to communicate certain things properly, because I did admit that it has been quite a break, good or bad. I have taken a long break, considering that I have never been off dogs for all my life, but it's been about 2.5 years now. So I think I've kind of forgot or missed out. It's not like I've not been able to express myself the right way. But I once again thank Siddharth. Thank you so much. I thank all the viewers. I thank Madras Canine Club for considering me for this live chat show and providing me this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Rajani. Before we go, I would like to say that next week we were having another interesting chat session we have lined up for you guys. It's about the very popular breed Doberman, and we have two eminent personalities from the United States of America who will actually join us in this session. That will be a slightly delayed chat session. We are going to start at 7 o'clock. We generally start all our sessions at 6, but next week's session we are starting at 7 due to the time difference. So stay tuned. We will let you know who the two eminent personalities are. Till then, till next week, the lockdowns are getting extended in India. So my sincere suggestion is stay home, stay safe. Let's beat this together. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much. Good night to all.